All right. Welcome back to the Travi Wavi. I'm your affable host, Travis Eason, and we are coming to you live once again in the 325 from beautiful downtown historic Abilene, Texas, storybook capital of America. And we always produce these shows live downtown at the Neon Parrot Studios, next door to Majestic Coffee Shop, serving Onyx coffee. In my opinion, it's the best in town. We've got Sam Wolf, our executive producer extraordinaire, running the microphones and cameras and making sure we look good on the internet. And today I have another special guest, Clint Rosenbaum.
Rosenbaum, very good.
How are you today, sir?
I'm great. Everything's great.
It's really good to have you on the show. We missed last week. Our guest had a last-minute reschedule, but we'll be bringing him back on in a few weeks. So, Clint, I ask all my guests right away, do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I've got two younger brothers.
Tell me about them.
So my middle brother is a retired military,
Okay.
82nd Airborne. He finished up at the 1st Cavalry there in Fort Hood, and they live in Hyco. Him and his wife live in Hyco, Texas.
Okay.
That's where my wife's from,
Okay.
is Hyco. And then I've got my youngest brother, is the superintendent of schools in Blanco, down in the Austin area.
Very cool. Very good. You guys stay close?
Oh, yeah.
Get to see each other often?
We see each other quite a bit. Of course, we go to Hyco quite a bit because my wife, we still have her home place there, and so my middle brother lives there, so we see them pretty regular. But we like to get together with them, and of course we text all the time. Texting's a great thing when you want to keep up with people, so it's easy.
So you're an Aggie, you're an A&M graduate.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And we talked before the show started. You like to go down to games and used to be season ticket holders. Is that something that the brothers join you guys at? Do you guys get to do that together?
Well, my nephews came through there, so they just by nature would show up with us and we'd hang out and that kind of thing. Now my middle brother's daughters, they went to Baylor and Sam Houston.
Okay.
And so they didn't quite spend a lot of time with us at A&M, but they'd come down and visit and we'd tailgate together and use their season tickets. So.
That's cool. My sister went to Sam Houston for her MFA in dance, so yeah, it's a beautiful school. So the reason we got you on the podcast today, Clint, is because you've come kind of highly recommended by some of my previous guests. Lynn Barnett, Nick Noblique, they've all kind of brought your name up. You're an engineer.
Yeah. And
you've been doing that your whole career?
I am an engineer. I'm an engineer's engineer.
You're an engineer.
You know, I'm a family guy, but inside I'm an engineer. I like doing engineering stuff.
So how did you get into that? What made you kind of choose that path?
You know, I've always been that way. You know, I was one of those guys that, I had a bicycle and I'd tear it down and it was scattered all over the garage and then I'd put it back together. And then when I started driving cars, the car would be tore down and put everywhere, So I was always tinkering with stuff, always doing things. My dad is a plumber by trade, pipe fitter. My uncle was an iron worker and my granddad was a carpenter.
Okay.
And so I during the summers, I just always hung out with them. My granddad, I just get in the truck and go hang out with my granddad, wherever he was working at. So just kind of by nature, I enjoy that kind of stuff. My brain thinks that way. I'm a problem solver. So
I like that.
I don't know any different. I never known any different, didn't know any different. From the time I was in junior high, I was going to go to A&M and get an engineering degree.
Okay.
So
It's been a life path.
Yeah.
So you went to A&M. When did you graduate?
Class 81.
Class of 81. And then how did you get it? What was your career sort of post-college?
So when I was in high school in 75, I grew up here in Abilene. I was born here in Abilene, and I went through my sophomore year in school here, Jane Long, Anson Jones, man, junior high, and then 1 year at Abilene High. And in 75, my dad took a job with Tippett and G Engineers, which they designed power plants all over the place. They were a bunch of old West Texas utility guys that got together, formed an engineering company, and did power plant design. In 75, my dad went to work for them as a field representative, basically going and overseeing the construction for whatever job they engineered. So we moved to Greenville, Texas in 75, and so that's where I ultimately graduated from high school was there. And then I went on to A&M. Well, after I graduated from A&M, I came back to Abilene, went back to work for Tippett and G doing power plant design. And so we moved back to Abilene in 82 and been here ever since, raised our kids and
done the whole
still
thing.
Here, yeah.
That's great. And you have your own firm now.
Yeah, I work for myself.
Yep.
Yeah, just me and Pam keeps the books for me and
Good.
takes care of me, keeps me lined out.
A lot of consultation work.
Yeah.
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 Good. And then, and you've been hugely involved and engaged in the sculpture garden
Yes.
projects and the parks with Lynn Barnett
Yeah.
in the city. Any stories about that come to mind?
Well, so let me kind of take you back in
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm an Abilene guy. I've been here since '82. You know, well, I grew up here, but since '82. So, you know, Lynn. You know, I mean, you've interviewed Lynn, and you got, you know, I'm going to diverge here a minute, but there's a few groups here in town, ladies here in town, if you want, you know, that if they call,
You say what? How
I
high?
answer the phone and I take care of whatever they need.
Yep.
Lynn Barnett's one, Rochelle Johnson out at the Expo Center is the other, and then Cynthia Pearson over at Day Nursery of Abilene.
Okay.
If those ladies call, because they do so much for the community, they need attention quickly, and I take care, and whatever they need, I'm here to handle.
Yep.
So Lynn and I go back. Really, the way Lynn and I got together was, I don't remember whether it was early 2000s, 2005, 3, somewhere in there. They were bringing in an exhibit to the Contemporary Arts building over there, and it was heavy. And so she said, hey, who can go over here and look at this floor and make sure that we're not doing something that we shouldn't be doing over there? And so, sure. So I went over there and I helped her do that. Then the next thing came up was Dino Bob.
Oh yeah, Dino Bob.
Dino Bob, you know, he's over there he's over there across the street from the Nickel. Well, he was over on the top of the Grace parking garage.
Yep.
And so, you know, we needed to get him off of there, get him cleaned up, fixed up, and then we were going to move him over and put him. So then I got involved with that. And so the next thing you know, I'm on the Cultural Affairs Council and helping Lynn and just mainly bringing my engineering, you know, process and problem solving.
Yep.
You know, to them. And so, you know, from that, it's just grown. You know, we did the lights underneath the tunnels, and we've done the lights up and down the railroad tracks, and the monuments, the cultural district monuments that are all around town. And
those look great.
So just, you know, anything that Lynn needs and needs an engineer to take care of, I take care of it for her.
That's great.
So,
and then you've also worked with Nick Noblique, who just installed the newest sculpture in the new sculpture park.
you know, and what about Nick? What a fascinating guy, you know, in his shop out there and the things that he does, you know. And he called me because he was looking for, I think it was a sculpture that was going to the city of Austin or somewhere, and they needed somebody. They wanted a verification that the structure that he was putting inside the sculpture was appropriate. And so he called me and said, hey, can you do this for me? And I said, sure. So I went out there and went, oh my goodness. You know, I mean, the guy's an engineer. He just, he's an artist, but he thinks like me, you know, in those kind of regard. And so the stuff he was doing was amazing. And so when, you know, I kind of got to know him in a little bit, and when we started talking about doing the tree for the garden, the you know, they said, well, you know, I said, what do we need to do here, and how do we need to do it? And I said, you know, we need to get Nick Noblique involved in it. And they said, who? And I said, well, yeah. So I said, I pulled up his website, and the next thing you know, you know, we're talking to Nick, and it's fantastic. I mean, you've seen the tree down there, and
great.
You know, it fits in really well, and it's perfect.
It looks really good.
But what a great guy.
Yeah,
you know.
And so that's fun. I guess I didn't put the pieces together that you were sort of the influential person to bring his name into the conversation.
Yeah.
That's really
Once
great.
we started talking about, you know, and my question was, how are we going to? We had a lot of Brandon Young over at Park Hill had some ideas, and we had some ideas of what we wanted it to look like. But you know, my engineering brain kicks in and goes, how are we going to build this thing? You know. And so then I said, well, you know, let's see if we can get Nick involved and see if we can kind of figure it out. Well, he came in with his own ideas, you know, and then we all kind of just collaborated. And the next thing you knew, it's over there standing up and everything.
And it was built so quickly.
Yeah.
Really quick. Like that idea kind of came to fruition within like 4 or 6 months.
Yeah. Well, so, you know, panic set in on me on the garden over here because we were talking about it, you know, and Mitch Wright did the layout of the garden, you know, and we've worked with Mitch. He did the first part of it, and he's done other things around town, a lot of stuff out at Lake Kirby and things like that, and we'd been talking to Mitch, and so we kind of had a plan of what we wanted to do, but like in November or so, the CAF committee came and said, hey, we're not going to have a parade. We're going to have a festival out in front of the hotel, and we want to use the garden. Well, the garden is just on paper. There's nothing, we haven't done anything yet. It's just kind of a concept on paper. Well, at that point, everything started kicking in and going, we need to get going here. So we made a plan, and we started going out and getting all the team together, and ultimately made it happen. So it was fantastic.
It's super impressive, considering all the other construction projects we have in downtown proper with this other park across the street, the Cypress Street, redo and all that, just to watch that little project in that storybook garden section come together so quickly and so professionally. Just, that's really impressive.
Yeah. Well, we had a good team. We'd used the team before, I mean, and I don't mean to
brag.
Hold these other guys up, but because there's a lot of great people in town. But you put Dan Hott and Brent Bunkley and the Bonke guys, the Bonke brother guys, Brent Partain over. You put those kind of guys on something, and you give them a little bit of leeway to do what they need to do when they want to do it. They do stuff.
They make it happen.
And one of the most impressive things about over here when we did this is, we're kind of stretching the limits of, contractors are, bigger hammer, bigger shovel, and that kind of thing. But this was kind of a lighter kind of, more artistic kind of thing to do. And so we gave the day work, the guys that were actually building the thing, the flexibility to do what they wanted to do in their own mind and make it look the way they kind of thought that it should look. And we encouraged them and had them do that. And it went so fast. That's why, because everybody bought into the concept. Everybody wanted to be involved in it. Everybody enjoyed being involved in it. And so when you have those things and everybody can kind of see it coming together and everybody gets excited about it, it just happened.
It's magical.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
To me, that project almost felt like a piece of theater, in the sense that you've got all these different minds and bodies coming together to produce something pretty quickly, and I mean pretty short timeline, even though it's a massive construction project.
Yeah.
Maybe not massive as compared to the data center, but
sure.
But and everybody having their own chance to kind of it's almost like it was an art project, even though it was a construction project. Yeah.
Those guys up there, putting up those rebar trees and bending that rebar around and making those trellises, they kind of had to make it their own art project. I mean, you weren't going to be able to do that on the ground or do it in a shop and then bring it out there and stand it up.
Got to do it in the air, on site. Yeah. It's pretty cool. So any other fun projects coming up for you as far as any partnerships with the culture or anything like that?
No, we're kind of taking a break. I mean, it's kind of nice to kind of have a few months here to kind of breathe and whatnot. I'm sure Lynn or somebody's got some things going. We are, it's not it's a needed project right now. We're doing repaving everything out at the Expo Center right now.
Okay.
And that's been needed for years and years. And so I'm kind of helping make sure that project's running smooth and everything's going good. And
cool.
And Radon is doing the paving work out there, and they're doing a great job. And and that's kind of like this job. You kind of got like you've got to kind of do those things around everything that's going on out there. So you kind of got to manage the other activities that Rochelle has going on out there, and the Expo staff does to kind of make those kind of things happen. So
that's cool. I've been segueing a little bit because I want to discuss some of this data center with you a little bit, but we've been talking about how with this workforce that's new to town, this transient workforce, there's about 6,000 new workers there as of this month. And, we have a bit of a housing crisis with most of our hotels being booked up for a year, Airbnbs, rentals, and this nature. And I got to thinking the other day, what happens when the West Texas Fair and Rodeo comes to town?
It's going to be a problem. I mean, Western Heritage was here. ACU had graduation. We've got all these other things that normally fill up the town.
Yep.
When it comes in, it's going to be an issue. The hotels are booked, and they're, and so I don't know how they're kind of handling saying, hey, we need these open weekends or what. Or it's just going to spread out to other communities, or people are just going to drive in and
go home.
And go home.
Yeah, we've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about it selfishly because I've got my youngest daughter will graduate in May, and most of my family comes to town to celebrate
Yeah.
those events, and usually I rent the house next door. It's a little Airbnb, but she's got that thing booked
Yeah.
for a year solid.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's going to be interesting. Um, what are some other highlights that you've worked on in your career? Things that you really want us to know about? Some of your amazing engineering magic.
I thought about that when I was coming in here because I expected you to ask me the question. Um, around Abilene, of course, I worked for Tippett and G, and a lot of people may remember Tippett and G. And then we were bought out by Lauren Engineers and Constructors in 2002, and so we moved over to Lauren, and I spent the last 15 years of that career working with basically outside of Abilene. But in Abilene, we were involved in the conference center expansion, the part that's to the north, that big room. We were Tip and G did that, and so I was involved in that, and several kind of minor renovations around the Civic Center. We did a couple of the elementary schools here in town back in the day. We did a lot of work out at DICE, kind of when the B1 was coming in and doing a few things and kind of updating all the facilities out there. We did several things back there, so I enjoyed all that. Kind of here lately, I really enjoyed being involved with all kind. I did the foundations and structure over there with Tim McClarty. Tim McClarty was the architect on that, and I really enjoyed that. And then I did the city asked me to do the dog park, so I did all the site work and all the layout and everything on the new dog park that's back there behind that. So that, that kind of thing's exciting.
That's really cool,
and it's fun to do. And so, I just anything and everything around town. A little bit more about my career. Tip and G, we did a lot of things around and power plants, and then we kind of got into doing a lot of Department of Defense work, and we did Department of Defense facilities. But when I went to work for Lauren was more power plants, refineries, those kind of things. And so we got to doing some in the kind of the early stages of solar, not particularly black panel PV. We did solar thermal, and so it's basically grabbing energy from the sun, heating up an oil, and then running it through a steam generator and generating steam, and then turning a regular steam turbine, kind of like a normal power plant would do. So we kind of got involved in that technology in the early 2000s, and we had the opportunity to link up with some folks from India because they were trying to get their solar work going. So we went over to Mumbai, India, and opened an office in Mumbai. And so I spent most of 2010 over there helping the Indian get their solar stuff up and running and visiting with people. And so it was really interesting to be in the solar business, kind of in that solar thermal, not the photovoltaics end of it, but the solar thermal thing, and get that up and moving and going. And being in India, it's a real neat culture. Of course, there's a lot of people, in those cities. Mumbai, when somebody said, how, what do you think about Mumbai? And I'd say, Mumbai's got 22 million people in it. All of Texas has 22 million people. So take all of Texas and put it inside the Beltway in Houston, and you've got Mumbai.
That's insane.
And so, but the people and the culture, I enjoyed that a lot and everything. And then in 2011, I was asked to go to Canada. We were looking at buying an engineering company in Canada. So I went to Canada in 2011. I spent most of 2011 in Canada buying an engineering company in Calgary. And if you've ever been to Alberta, Calgary's beautiful. And so, kind of going from Mumbai with 22 million people in it to going to Calgary, there's a lot like Texas anyway. It's colder, but it's a lot like Texas, so. I enjoyed going to both of those, setting up those companies and getting those businesses up and running, then managing them. Then kind of the last, 10 years of my career, I managed offices in Mumbai, Calgary, Vancouver, Abilene, Irving, Houston, and Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh, that's where I was born, Knoxville, Tennessee. I love that.
So I spent a lot of time traveling in those years, but that was a lot of fun. And we were working the refinery, chemical. Petrochemical power industries.
So just stepping back real quick to India, how long were you there for? A couple years?
I'd go for stints of, in 2010, but then, really until I left Lauren in 2017, I was over there.
Regularly?
I could get into the politics of it all, but you know, you have to, if a foreign company has a business in India, you have a board that's in India, so you have to be there for the board meetings, and so being on the board of those kind of companies, you have to be there. But you know, I'd go every few months anyway, just to you know.
So did you acquire a strong taste for curry?
You know, I enjoy all kinds of food. You know, and the only thing that about traveling that you kind of have to learn if you traveled far, you know, is you need to watch the water, and fresh vegetables and fresh fruits are washed in the water, so you kind of have to, you know. And so I always traveled with folks that lived here in the U.S. but were from Mumbai or Delhi or wherever we were going, and you know, I just let them order, you know, because they would know what I could, you know, tolerate and what I couldn't, and so I enjoyed the food, and I never got sick, you know.
Good.
So
good. Yeah, I've been playing with coconut milk and curry a little bit more lately. Good flavors. So I mean, do you miss all that travel now that you're more? I mean, you're
No.
not retired, but you're kind of semi-retired, maybe.
No, I don't.
No?
You know, for folks that travel a lot, they'll understand it's a stress on the body, you know, and it's a stress on your family too. You know, luckily our kids had already moved out and they, you know, had gone to college and they were having families of their own when I really started traveling heavy, and so you know, I didn't miss that part of it, and you know, and you know, my wife stayed home, and so she could come with me some. Now, I never brought her to India. I'm not sure that would be a good place to go, but she spent a lot of time up in Canada with us, and
Cool.
And when I travel around here in the U.S., she'd go with us, and so, but it's just it's high stress, and you know, your body eventually gets used to it, you know, and it took me about a year to decompress when I left Lauren, you know, to get out of that mode. So it was interesting.
That's good.
But no, I you know,
Don't miss it.
I don't miss the traveling. I enjoy getting in the truck and driving, you know, to Brownwood or San Angelo or, you know,
Someplace a little closer.
over to Heiko and checking on my cows. You know, those are kind of things I like doing.
It's interesting you mentioned Canada. My sister and step-sister-in-laws just, I mean, literally yesterday got home from about a 5-day trip to Banff up there. They went up there and hiked. The girls did. So that's fun. Beautiful pictures, man.
Yeah,
So pretty
that's
up
a
there.
beautiful area. Yeah.
Yep. So, you know, we talk a lot on this channel about the oncoming tidal wave of artificial general intelligence and AI, and Abilene's been put on the map by, you know, this administration and with the Stargate facility, this $500 billion project, and it's been going on. We've been keeping an eye on it. My daughter and I drove out to Snyder the other day, and I was like, look, there it is, you know. Anyway, all that to say, I had a conversation with ChatGPT the other day. We were talking about this particular Stargate facility north of town, and then I was also kind of talking about you with ChatGPT, and it offered to put together some fun questions and questionnaires. So I think this is the first time I've done this, but we're going to see what AI thinks about this. So, Clint, as you know, Abilene is the home to the Lancium project. We've just been talking about that. It's a large-scale data infrastructure. It's tied to the global expansion of AI compute power. While it does bring attention and investment, we're also seeing strain on housing, roads, resources, people. So give me some of your engineering perspective on what you think a project that size, how a project that size is influencing our community currently, and what you might project to be some problems in the future.
So, you know, obviously the issues it's causing now is housing's an issue, and you know, our hotel motel tax is up, and it's good, and all of our hotels and motels are full, but again, like the fair and all these other things, what's going to happen? So, I'm kind of more towards the future of it. I mean, I understand the AI and I understand the data center and all that, but we've got a lot of people right now that's here for construction, but in 5 years, what is it going to look like when those people when the construction is complete and we're back to just operation and maintenance on the data center?
Yep.
And I haven't thought about it or studied enough to understand, you know, do we get overbuilt, you know, and in 5 years, you know, when the construction kind of moves away, are we overbuilt?
Yep.
You know, I mean, right now we've got a lot of momentum. I mean, if you drive around town, there's houses going up everywhere. The city infrastructure is expanding. You know, I mean, I'm sure all the communities around us are the same way. You know, so, you know, I don't know if I'm answering your question properly, but I kind of wonder about what's going to look like
Yeah.
when the construction is done in the future.
So, I mean, with
know.
your background building power plants, right, and which are large scale construction projects, and you know, I've seen some drone footage of the Stargate project, you know, from March this past year to just this last month, and the amount of growth, the amount of new infrastructure that's being put out there. They're building a natural gas generating power plant out there. It is mind blowing to see it, and then to hear that, you know, this project it's not even like a quarter of the way done. I mean, they're going to expand 10 buildings on 1,000 acres. I've heard that they've already purchased the next 1,000 acres for another 10. Every day on the news, I'm hearing new announcements like Fermilabs in partnership with Texas Tech is building one up by Amarillo. There's a new one in Kansas City. Zuckerberg and Meta have announced more and more. They're being built in Louisiana. And I heard Sam Altman, who is OpenAI, the other day in a podcast talking about his vision is that the globe is tiled in these data centers. So I've got a couple questions that I want to pitch to you, but one is, you know, according to AI itself, there's about a 3 to 5 year period of basically this high performance hardware has like a 5-year lifespan. So by the time that this project's maybe being built, some of the hardware inside already needs to be pulled out and replaced. What are some of your thoughts about all this?
So what to do with the waste
well,
when it comes
just
out?
Like I mean, since we're just here on the sidelines, citizens of town, we're not really getting answers to questions. So I'm just asking anyway. You know, what do you think? I mean, where are we going to move? What would be a sort of cradle to grave situation for some of this hardware if you were in charge?
You know, I would hope that, you know, we'd eventually figure out how to recycle it, how to reuse it. I mean, I'm sure all of it's got rare earth minerals in it and everything, and you know, that's going to be limited at some point. You know, so hopefully we can figure out how to recycle that or reuse it. I wouldn't think that, you know, sticking it in the Abilene landfill out there is going to be the right thing to do with it. So. You know, I kind of wonder when the wind turbines have seen their life expectancy, what's going to happen? Are we just going to have a bunch of wind turbines standing out there that are old and rusty and you know, not doing anything?
And I've heard that those have been kind of difficult to recycle.
Yeah,
that they end up getting buried a lot.
Yeah. The you know, it's the blades are fiberglass, so they're difficult to do things with. So. You know, honestly, I haven't thought about it, you know, enough to really kind of understand what would happen.
I just, you know, the scale of these projects is just so massive to me, and you know, I've got a couple points of information coming from the, you know, some people I know that are kind of working in and around the facilities, and just, you know, we've talked a lot of these facilities that are in the news right now. They're really concerned about water and electricity, and I've heard that our data center will be a closed loop system, but you know, 1 million gallons of water per building section is still a lot of water to draw when we are an arid semi-desert climate. I mean, if you were sitting on city council today, what are some of the questions you would be asking the CEOs of these companies that are building this data center from an engineering perspective?
You know, you're asking me a tough question. you know, because I really have never thought about it.
Yeah, that's okay.
You know, and so you know, our city councilmen, you know, they have a lot to think about. You know, more so than just the, you know, what kind of revenues they're going to bring in, and you know what's going to happen. So. you know, you know, I would think that you. Well, I don't know whether the city council can govern or not, but you know, the cradle to grave kind of question.
Mm-hmm.
What ultimately, will we have to do with the facility?
Yep.
You know, what's
Yep.
you know, I
What
mean,
are we going to be stuck with?
well, you know, and you go through, you look at the ups and downs of of our of the way just our economy goes. You know, we've got a lot of manufacturing buildings or warehousing buildings around here. You know that we're now renovating and bringing back that just sat vacant and deteriorated over the time. You know, are we gonna kind of like I said with the wind turbines, are we going to just wind up with a building out there at some point that's but everything's got about a 20-25 year life expectancy, and so at some point, you've got to think that in 25-30 years there's going to have to be something done to
What's the plan?
and we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, things change so fast. Who knows what's going to be like, and
I keep thinking too, like, we're basically building giant computers, right? I mean, that's what a data center is. And with the hope that, I got to be honest, AI is just continuing to get better and better and better, like every couple weeks. I mean, even faster in some cases. It's just absolutely stunning to watch. But I know from, the OpenAI, Oracle kind of standpoint, they're hoping that this compute power will continue to improve upon itself and hopefully design new hardware and all. So again, like, I'm just asking the question. I know you don't have the answers, but like, I've got, the state-of-the-art $5.5 million computer the size of my refrigerator, and now I've got literally thousands of them stacked into this, Walmart-sized building.
Right.
And the hope is that those computers will tell me then how to make those computers even better, faster, more energy efficient. So maybe that hardware isn't even good for 3 to 5 years. It maybe is only good for 3 months.
Yeah.
It just, so I don't know the logic behind all of this. As someone that likes to build and create and has a background in that, also, it's like I don't see what problem we're solving. I feel like we're creating more problems to be solved.
I think it's important to keep in mind that this is the race. This is the new space race of our age.
Yeah.
And we got to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the mentality I think we're getting.
We talked earlier, I'm not a social media guy. I have no social media presence other than my company website, and so I just really hadn't thought about it.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's good. Maybe you'll think about it today. Come back,
give me, from an engineering perspective, my thought wasn't necessarily what's going to go in there and what's it for. It's like, okay, great. It's cloud based or whatever it is and that kind of thing. But, why Abilene, Texas?
Yeah.
Why did Lancium pick Abilene, Texas?
I think, cheap land that's relatively flat.
Yeah.
Right. For what it's worth, and I want to get some more city council people back on here. But, Robert Hanna just left, and we have a new city council or new city manager that's come in. I can't think of her name right now. But this was a business decision for Abilene. It had to have been. I know they gave them 85% abatement.
Yeah.
So, but when I had Donna Albus on, she was under the impression that this was a Bitcoin mining facility.
Yeah.
And Catherine Baumgartner, who was on last or 2 weeks ago, they have some Airbnbs. She's been renting one out to the Caruso crew for like 5 years with that same, we're building a data center to mine Bitcoin.
Right.
Okay. Still going to use a lot of water, still going to use a lot of power. But under that guise is what we annexed the land for. Under that guise is what we gave them the tax abatement for. So, I mean, I don't know enough about the structure legally about what our city council could do, but if I were in charge, I would be asking more questions.
Well, and again, I don't want to get into the politics of the thing, but so some of my background is that I was on the Planning Zoning Commission. I was on Planning Zoning Commission since 2006. I was on there for 18 years or so, and all of this came before the Planning and Zoning Commission and all that kind of stuff, and that's not the way I remember it.
Right.
Okay, and so when you said Bitcoin, I thought, well, maybe that was connected, but I don't ever remember it being Bitcoin mining.
What do you remember about that? Those
I
conversations?
remember a big facility, obviously, and I remember data center, and so in my mind now, I may be off, and I could go back and probably look at the meeting minutes from the meetings that we conducted in the Planning and Zoning Commission about all this, but in my mind, we're getting exactly what I thought we were getting from our approvals and passing on to the plant. It all come, to annex that land and do all those kind of things and change the zoning and those kind of things all came before the Planning and Zoning Commission real early on, like 5 years ago or 4 years ago or whenever it was. And from my recollection, we're getting, we're doing exactly what I thought we were doing from our meetings with the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Even, and I'm just pushing on it a little bit, but even like as far as like having a 1 gigawatt power station out there?
Well, again, I'm an engineer, so I'm going, if you're gonna do this, you've got to get power. Yeah, that to me that was an opportune spot because it's on that main trunk line with AEP and I guess where AEP and Texas Utilities cross. There's a big substation right there. The main AT&T fiber line, the big huge AT&T fiber line goes right through there, and there's plenty of gas right there. So it's kind of an opportune spot to do that. But you were never going to be able to draw enough power from the wind or from solar or from the existing grid right there. You were going to have to put up some power. You were going to have to put in some kind of gas turbine power. So, maybe from an engineering perspective, I assumed more.
It made sense to you
than they said. But
I guess I think that's. I mean, to me, that makes total sense. That from your standpoint, what they were asking for and what they're delivering now is kind of in alignment or it's lining up. I guess just from some of the other conversations I've had with other people who I would hope would be in the know a little bit more, it still feels very much, we don't know, like we still have questions about that.
Yeah.
And, from what I'm kind of gathering from what I'm seeing in other communities that are having construction like this for these data centers, it's a lot of the same questions.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a noise or vibration situation once this is up and running? Is that going to affect people that live nearby? What is this going to increase our cost of electricity? Probably. Is this going to what is this going to do for our water supply in 10 years when we are really limited in our water supply? I don't know.
Yeah.
You don't have the answers to this.
I don't have the answer. I don't have the answers. But we're fortunate here that we don't have power generation stations right in downtown Abilene. I mean, we our power was up in North Texas somewhere that was wheeled down here to us. But you got a lot of communities where they've lived with that. I mean, they've got power stations. You go to Austin, you've got power plants right in the middle of Austin generating power for them. And to me, this building, although there's going to be a lot of equipment inside of it, the heating and cooling and those kind of things isn't much different than a big box store like Walmart or anybody else. So other than the traffic and just the facilities for all the people that are out there, I can't see that it makes much of an impact. Yeah, it'll draw water, but if you cycle it,
if it stays in a closed loop, then
I mean, you're having to continually make up because you're continually losing it. You're still, especially if you're running it through a cooling tower, you're still continually losing water, and you're continually making it up. But it's not like it's an in and an out. It's not a complete pass through. So,
yeah, these are definitely. I just think these are interesting questions that I would hope that my audience would also find it interesting. And it's not just us. Like it's not just us in Abilene with this facility, this construction project. It's all over the Midwest, so all over the country right now. So, do you think engineers have a responsibility to advocate for the communities that are impacted by projects like this? That's putting you on the spot pretty hard.
Well, advocate or be involved. I mean, I think, one thing that I don't feel like our engineering group profession, maybe. I'm not sure what the right term is, but, I've always advocated for, our profession requires continuing education and things like that. But and they also, you're allowed continuing education credits for, being involved in professional organizations and things like that, but not so much for being involved in the community. And I always couldn't understand it and tried to push for it, and it always seemed to kind of fall on deaf ears that I thought engineers should be more involved in the community. Yeah, our profession, you just naturally, just by doing your day-to-day work, you should get continuing education, and you should be up to date with the latest technologies, and you should do that, and you should be involved with professionals, peers, at other places or whatnot. But if you're in a community, you should be involved in the community, and our profession should be have put just as much focus on being community involved as being professionally involved, if you can kind of separate the two there. And I didn't feel like our profession does that as much about being, in the community and serving on nonprofit boards. I always encourage my engineers. I said, if you want to know how to run a business, go get on a nonprofit, okay, and be involved in a nonprofit and figure out how they do their budgets and how they keep personnel and how they do all that and do those kind of things, and you'll understand how to run a company, and you'll be better for it. Even learn how to run a project, and so be an advocate or be involved in the community. We engineers need to take our problem-solving skills to things like we were just talking about with Lancium and things like that, and be on zoning commissions and be involved with nonprofits and and those kind of things, to be able to take what we do every day, which is problem solve, to complex problems like dealing with these kind of things in the community.
Yeah, because you hear, at least I don't know, this is my perspective, but I hear a lot more about architects than I do about engineers.
Yes.
I don't know if that's just like if it's the sexier profession or what, but
well,
I don't agree with that.
Engineer, I'm an introvert. I mean, I'd much rather just stood over there on the side and not sit here. Okay, I have to. My first reaction is kind of a flight reaction. And then once I let my body get that passed, then I'm okay and I can move on. But introvert. Engineers are they're all kind of introverts. They just like to sit there and do their calculations and do their drawing, and and so architects are more like artists. They're more. They think kind of different. If that's not the right so yeah, you hear about architects all the time, because they are out front. A facade and making a building look pretty and all that's kind of neat. The engineers back there just trying to hold the thing up, and make sure the air conditioner works. So that's just you see the stuff the architect does. You don't ever see the stuff that the engineer does.
But I think that's right that you said it would be good to have engineering a little bit more in front in the public eye, because y'all are the problem solvers. You're not just making it pretty or aesthetically pleasing. You're actually solving the issue at hand, and I think we need that more now than ever. Yeah.
So,
what else? What else is going on in your world right now? Anything fun?
Well, we talked earlier. We've got grandkids, and our oldest one is 13, grandson 13, and then a granddaughter that's 10, and one that's 9, and then one that's 6, and so just having fun with those guys.
And you and your wife Pam just took a trip with one of the grandchildren?
Yeah, so we got this idea from Larry Gill.
Okay.
And Larry, when his grandchildren turned 13, he took them on a trip, just him and his wife and the child, grandchild. And so we thought, what a neat idea, what a neat thing to do. And so our grandson just turned 13, and so we took him to, we flew to New York. They live in Houston. We went down to Houston, picked him up, and flew to New York. We spent 4 days in New York, and then we rode the train to Boston.
Fun.
And spent 4 days in Boston.
Fun.
Just me and Pam and Caden, and a life experience that you just can't describe.
Yeah.
how much fun that was and how enjoyable that was.
Did you guys catch a show on Broadway?
So we saw The Outsiders. He wanted,
Okay.
and he picked them.
Okay.
He picked The Outsiders because he had read the book.
Mm-hmm.
That was a junior high, reading deal, and so he read the book The Outsiders, and of course, fantastic show. I mean, it was really great, and the set was great, and the cast was fantastic. And so he enjoyed that immensely.
Good.
And then if you go see a show, you got to go see Lion King.
Absolutely.
And so we saw The Outsiders and Lion King
Good.
over there.
One of our alum, Ben Jeffries, is still playing Pumbaa after, I think, 15 plus or 20 some years. He's still
wow.
in that role. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
Lion King, so good. And then you guys trained up to Boston. Did you get a lobster roll up there?
We got a lobster roll, clam chowder.
Good.
We had plenty of lobster,
Good.
Boston is just such a neat place to
It's
go.
one of my favorite cities,
Yeah.
for sure. The history, the architecture, the
Yeah.
parks, the walkability of it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just so cool. That's so cool. So what else is coming up for you in Abilene? Any more projects on the docket?
Of course, I'm small scale.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of got the smaller end of things. What are we working on today? I do a lot of house foundations,
Okay.
around town. So I'm doing some house foundations. I'm doing a road right now out in the solar field over in the Cleburne area.
Okay.
Over in the Cleburne Granbury area for a company out of Abilene, nothing exciting. Businesses here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Doing site work and site development and a few structures. Early boardwalk down in Brownwood down there. They've just built a boardwalk like Allen Ridge out here.
Okay. Yeah.
And we're working with one of the developers there to do a building on that
Cool.
boardwalk down there.
Very cool.
So
That's good. And you're still serving in some capacities on nonprofits and boards.
I spent a lot of time on the like I said, 18 or so years on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it was time for me to leave. We had a good commission, and it was time for me to leave, and so now I'm out there on the Expo board. That's kind of where I wanted to kind of wind down and kind of finish out my career and working on those kind of boards, and Rochelle out there does a fantastic job, and that's a great board out there to be on. And
Very good.
And so I'm enjoying being on that board, and I just went on it in November last year, and I'm on the YMCA board. Okay. And I enjoy doing that, and then of course, Lynn, and being on cultural affairs, I can spend all my time over there too.
Good.
So.
Oh man, that's fun. Yeah, I've got a couple of bugs I want to put in Lynn's ear about some ideas. Do you have any dreams or visions for the Storybook Capital of America here in Abilene? I mean, is there some more? You've been involved with a lot of the sculpture gardens and things of this nature, but is there anything that you specifically would really like to see us have or do?
No. The main thing is I want us to continue to keep our infrastructure that we're developing intact and going. What I see, and it seems to be better now than it has been. But I make a lot of these small communities, and I do a lot of things out in these small communities, looking at older buildings and things. And frankly, over the last 20 years, 30 years, we've let things deteriorate that we shouldn't have let deteriorate.
Can you give me some examples of that?
Well, like. We've got, now it looks really nice, but, 10 years ago, downtown Abilene was,
Yeah.
20 years ago especially, but you go out into these small towns, you go to Anson, Merkel, Clyde, all the downtown areas, they just let those old buildings just deteriorate. And some of them were fantastic old buildings, and now they've all seen the need to keep them up and come back in. And of course, it costs a lot now to renovate them, but look at the things we're doing with the courthouse, our old courthouse down there. We're renovating it. We're, hopefully in the next month or so, the county will get to move back into that. The old Lincoln High School, old Abilene High, Lincoln
the Heritage
Junior
Square
High,
project.
Heritage Square project. I mean, those kind of projects are fantastic and need to be done. And you need to utilize those. We need to make those facilities and utilize those buildings like that. So as far as Storybook Garden and Storybook Capital, I'm just enjoying we're at right now with it, you know. And I'm not a visionary kind of guy. You know, I'm a problem solver, you know, and so, you know, like I said, I'm kind of an introvert, and I'm kind of a pessimist. You know, man, it's kind of like you can't make that work. You know, but when people have a vision and they want to get with it, then I get behind it, and you know, and then make it happen. So that's kind of where I'm on the execution side of the stick, and not the vision.
You're on the production side.
Yeah,
I like it. I like it. Well, as we wrap up today, is there anything else you want to share with our audience, or any questions for me?
No, I just appreciate everything you do.
Man,
I kind of went and looked at some of the other things and or some of the other interviews, and that's a great thing. And
good.
And appreciate Sam
Absolutely.
over there, you
Absolutely.
know, and all that he does for everything, and the Wolf family in general, Will and his dad,
Yep.
you know, and everything that they do. So, you know, it's great to have things like this in the community and people like you guys. And
well, thanks, brother.
And then working with Nick and Lynn, and I mean, what better kind of thing can we do than?
It was pretty neat. The collaboration piece of any of these projects is my favorite part. Always.
Yeah.
So. Well, Mr. Clint Rosenbaum, thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for answering my questions, and I hope I gave you something to think about with.
I'll be happy to go back and analyze Lansing with my engineering brain. We can come back and we can have another discussion.
I'd like to do that.
You know, another discussion on that at some point. So.
See if we can't get to the bottom of some of this stuff and make our community feel, you know, safe and proud of what's happening.
Yeah.
And I just don't know that that's the overall sentiment yet. Yeah. But that's okay.
Well, I you know, I would say give it some time. You know, it doesn't. Alarm me any, you know, as far as is that being out. I mean, I've been around big construction jobs my whole life, so you know, a big construction project, it's hectic, you know, for a while here. But then, you know, as you know, everything kind of settles in and it gets to become part of the community, it'll just fold in to be part of the community.
It'll be normal. It'll be the new normal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Sam Wolf, our producer extraordinaire. Thank you, Neon Parrot Live Studios in downtown Abilene, Texas, for being the place where we make this magic happen every week. Come on downtown and stop at Majestic Coffee Shop. Grab yourself some Onyx coffee. It's the best. And we look forward to seeing you next week. I've got another special guest lined up. You guys should get excited. All right. Clint, thank you so much for being here today. We'll get you back on, and we'll touch base some more about all this.
Yeah, give me a little bit of time to study it.
Yeah,
and then we'll talk some more.
We'll look into it.
All right.
All right, thank you, friend. Appreciate it.
Thanks a bunch, man.
Thanks, Sam.